Hello and welcome back, hobby heroes. My name is Marcus from Marcus Miniatures, and today we are painting something epic. The Primark from the Emperor's Children, Fulgrim itself from Warhammer 40k. But there is a twist. I will use the new paint range of AK, the Quick Paint, and try to do this big model in under 3 hours. The challenge was, can I make tabletop ready results in under 3 hours with that kind of paint and still have a nice overall finish? Stick around because this will be chaotic, a little bit messy, but I'm very happy with the outcome, and I think you too. A little disclaimer, of course, you might maybe know me. I'm a studio painter. I have to paint in several levels. So not all the miniatures are high quality, not all the miniatures are speed painting. This time I really tried to give a very fast review on how I do a tabletop ready miniature, or how we call it like a basic painted miniature. So this is pretty much a very nice model for your gaming table. I would not consider that as like any kind of like high-end or display, but I really think that the majority of the people are on the level of wanting a tabletop-ready miniature that looks very nice on the table, also pretty fine on detail, but is still done in kind of a reasonable time. And this is why I really like to do stage painting. I like my medium levels very much. I also like to paint high level or even try my best for Golden Demon. Some people like high-end painting, some people like speed painting. I like to show you something in the middle. If you have never heard about the AK Quick Paint, I can really suggest my last video. It is all about the Quick Paint. I made a reviews and paint 40 Space Marines with those paint, and I was very happy. But enough talking, let's paint that Fulgrim. I will try to keep it as simple as possible so you can do it for your Fulgrim or maybe any other model as well. So let's get into the painting process. As you can see, I use a brush that is a little bit old already, but it's still a nice brush. It's a Da Vinci Maestro Series 70, and as you can see, the Fulgrim got a nice undershading. I did it with airbrush. You can also just use a can, do like a Senator base coating with the can. Maybe I do a video about that too. Write in the comments if you like that. And as you can see, I start here with Space Magenta, but of course, I will also put all the paint I used in the description of the video. And I tried to make a very thin layer with the first paint, because I knew that I will probably use multiple layers. But yeah, if you want to do it in one go, it's also possible. I'm pretty fast with the brush, even if this is like obviously like fasten up video, but you can see it's a very nice color. I worked on the body kind of a lot because I think that's one of the most prominent areas of that model, this and the wings. And basically, as you can see, I focused on all the magenta or like pinkish parts. The paint is drying really smooth and matte. This is what I really like about that paint range. Now everything looks pretty rough. We will come to that point where everything is a little bit better. This is a pretty messy part. To be fair, I paint that for a customer. He don't care. So we go with it. I don't love it, but that's how it is. And the next paint is a very deep and super silky smooth purple. There you can see that I paint all the like the spiky parts and the middle of that body, whatever comes in that case. It's like multiple textures, I would say. I really like how smooth that paint is applying in the residues of the unit. I can really recommend you using a very soft brush for that, because then it really goes very nice into all the deeper areas. For me, that part of the painting process is really satisfying. You can see the first results, you can see how the paint is coming along. I really like to work with like bigger brushes to make like a rough start. As you can see, it's like there is no precision so far. Of course, you try to not go too far into other paint, but also with those big models, it's kinda easy. And as you can see here, tip of the tail, I did not magenta. So I have a little bit of a color variety with that purple. And again, here you can see how matte and how smooth and rich and vibrant that paint is getting applied on the model. And when you see like the close-up, I really love the details of Fulgrim. And this is the first layer of shade that I have on the face. I really like that AK has multiple white quick paint, so you can really choose. And I like to do just a very smooth shading on some areas, which is not vibrant, not very bright, or not very colorful. But at the end, I like to have a shading on all parts, even if some parts are not that dominant, because it's kind of like putting all the paint together. It's kind of giving it the vibe that you have everything like in the same finish. Everything is kind of like in the same smoothness. And this is really what I like. Even if the paint like this, like I think it's a vampire flesh tone, like a white-ish with a purple tone inside. And I really like to do that. And now we're coming to a very, very interesting part. Now I combine a vibrant purple and kind of a turquoise, like a greenish turquoise with also like a lot of blue in it to the wings. And as you can see, I try to blend it together, which is very easy with those paints because they're very, very wet. So as you can see, I apply both paints on the model. One is in the north, one is in the south. And at the end, I use a clean brush and try to kind of stipple them together. So they are running into each other. Of course, as you can see here, I try to avoid pooling too much paint on that area, even if it's like very thin. And I really like to do it. And here you see it again. I use purple, very rough on the wings, and try to do more like the darker areas. This is also working very fine if you don't have like a airbrush priming, like the airbrush pre-shading. And as you can see here, then the bluish, greenish, turquoise, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a very nice and vibrant tone. I let it run into each other. And as you can see here, after it's dry, it is still vibrant. It is still very rich. And I really like that combination of blue, greenish, and the purple. Gives it more depth, gives it more like an interesting look. And after that, we will focus on some of the hair and bony parts with a bone shade. And I apply that on the hair. The hair is also a very, very interesting and very important part of the model because this is such a crazy shape. It's like so much area. And as you can see, with that pre-shading and on that white, the bone colors are really coming out. I love that. Also, obviously, the horns. You can also do parts of the skin and all that kind of like bony, spiky areas. I really like to do with that bone wash or like bone contrast paint. After that, of course, we will also go with some shading. So I already have that area pretty dark, but I like to have it very, very dark, almost like blackish to the tip. So we have like a color transition from a magenta to a purple, and then even to a little bit of a black. As you can see here, I tried to push the contrast even more. You can see on my palette, like the paint are very, very rich and very dark. They appear on the palette sometimes very dark because they're so highly pigmented that you can actually really see that they have a lot of value in it. And now we're coming to one of my favorite parts. I really like the metal paint from AK Quick Paint range. If you have not seen my review, check it out. It is absolutely worth seeing multiple colors of them. And here I will do a wet blending on that blade to have a fast result. I blended with a gold and a black, and as you can see, those pigments are flowing together like it's silk and smooth. And after that, of course, I did all the other metal parts. I really like to work with the gold here, because I think for Primark, he should have a lot of gold. He's probably crazy rich and want to show people that he's worth gold. And that's why I do the majority of the areas in gold. And this is the first result. We have undershading and we have 1 or 2 layers of quick paint. I think that's pretty neat for just a little bit of work. So what do we have now? Actually, we have a speed painted model. A very easy and very achievable result. We have a priming and we have 1 or 2 layers of the quick paint, and it's already pretty vibrant. It is nice. Of course, it is battle ready. Just do the base and you're ready to go. And if you have time and you want to do more, of course, then take your time. And this is what we do now. I thought about a very easy approach for that. So I thought, how can I make it as understandable and as replicatable as possible? So I came back to my pretty much first few techniques when I started as a painter, and I tried to make like a very harmonic result. And for that harmonic result, you don't want to take too much time and too much thoughts about color theory and everything. And for me and that model, I went with a very interesting approach. The approach is that easy. I take the same highlight color for all the paints I use on Fulgrim. So in that case, it's a dark sand tone, which sounds very dark, right? But it is not. When you mix like a beige sand tone into that vibrant paint of the quick paint range, it really brightens up. And also, after all, those are way more opaque. So it also gives you more power in the highlights. So trust me on the process. I really like to use the sand tones to highlight up because it gives him like a creamy finish at the end. If you want to make it even brighter, just take a white, or even better, an off-white, ice yellow, or like everything that is kind of like a little bit below white, because a white very often gives you a grayish finish. I don't like that on my miniatures, so I go with sandy tones and off-white. And here we go. Obviously, some parts are easier to paint when you put a little bit of acrylic in it, especially when you do like a scenery priming like I do. So I now show you how I paint some parts that I am not already painted. In that case, I used the purple flash from the quick paint quick paint range with the dark sand, which is actually not really dark. But as you can see, this is kind of like a mid flash tone. And I will paint now all the ripped off skin paint tones with it. And I also try to keep that very, very wet. I don't want to ruin that super delicate details. I go over it all, basically always in like the same direction as far as it's possible. So I work linear with the brush. So just some very gentle brush strokies and don't swamp the whole miniature with paint. We don't do that. We have a delicate hobby. So we just want to have like small, delicate brush strokes. And also there are some other parts like this. Those ripped off parts with Fulgrim are all over the place. He really likes to rip off his skin, and I painted all that. But also you can do it with other parts. When you see, oh, this is for me too watercolorish, I like to have it more opaque. You can always mix your acrylics into the quick paint to give you an overall better opacity to try to push that model to the next level. But if you want to make highlights on the given areas where you were already on the miniature with quick paints, you can do the same. I take, for example, the turkish tone here, mix some dark sand in it, and then I go in the very highlights to push that even more. And that opacity and that power of the acrylics is really giving you another level. And of course, you can play around with that paint. You can do some scratches. You can do some edge highlights. You can do basically everything with it. As you can see, I went a little bright on that after the first layer. You can also see I use kind of like a feathering technique. So very small little strokies to push that structure of that wings. And I really think that made it pop out even more. As you can see here, I use some little linings, and of course you can also glaze it after that. It really depends. And also those kind of like edge parts, like the, let's say, the hands of the wings, I have no idea how it's that called, and I highlight all the bluish parts or the turquoise bluish parts, and then I go for the next paint. And always keep in mind, you can do as much as you want, as much as your skill gives you, or you can also try some things, try to improve your painting from miniature to miniature. And here you can see, for example, I mixed the purple with the dark sand, and it's really giving a nice texture to the wings if you work with acrylics and with the quick paints. So you can benefit from both. First of all, you don't need to dilute the quick paints when you mix it with the acrylics. I don't do that because it's already very wet and very smooth, and but still it has a good pigmentation and still has a very nice opacity. And also you can use those kind of mixes for the coat, for example. Here you can see I like to have the inner part of that cape of him, I like to have it in a sand tone and the outer part in the purple tone. So I try to mix a little bit of the purple in the beige, so it's kind of like merge into that color scheme. But also I want to show very specific that this is like the inner part of the coat or the cape, and the other side is different. This is purple. So as you can see here, this is also standing out. And after that, I also think that this part, like the wing on his chest, is one of the most important parts of the model because it is very prominent. It is near to his face, and it's very important that you have a bright color there, in my opinion, to catch the attention to his face, especially with not so high-end models. You kind of like don't want people to see what's maybe below that wings that you have maybe skipped because you needed to play and not spend all your time on the miniature. And as you can see here, this is the first highlight on the flashy parts. Just the same paint as before, little bit of more dark sand in it, and it's already showing you highlights. You can do as much as you want. I do here some volume highlights, but also at the end some edge highlights, because I also think that part of the model is very important too. And as you can see, those paints are also always very wet. So don't go too dry. You don't want your paint ever to be too dry to apply smoothly. And a little pro tip, use your time wisely. You can see here the highlights are not drying. While those highlights are drying, I go over some certain parts with a wash to prepare myself and prepare the miniature for the next steps. Because that wash, which in that case for most of the model is a 50-50 mix of water and quick paint, you can also use medium, obviously. They they put it in the most of their starter kits. And I put the washers on the model so it can dry while I do the other parts. And as you can see here, I use turquoise for the gems or all that diamond things. I don't even know what it is, but never mind. It is for me very important to keep it in the color palette. So I use basically the same or like a very similar color from the wings as a gem color, but I use acrylics so it's shiny. Not shiny, but it's like it's popping out a little bit more because it's not translucent or transparent color. And don't overdo it. Just dilute it a little bit, put it on. While this is drying, you can work on your contrast. So I use the paint again, the quick paint. There are some low intensity paint that you can also use right away, but I like to dilute it down with a little bit of water and medium. And as you can see, while the gems are drying, I can work on my contrast. I like to have that model dark, vibrant. So I use dark and vibrant paint to put the contrast everywhere where I think there is not enough deepness, like not enough depth and not enough areas where I see highlight and shadow. Really go through the model and see where you can push yourself to the next level, because this is a very fast step. This is not something that takes a lot of time. And then you can focus on some important parts like this. I highlight those wings. I mix the dark sand with a grayish white to not overdo the warmth of that area. I don't want to be like too yellowish, so I now go with a more grayish tone to highlight that dark sand tone. And here also, and this is also a very important thing, take your time on the very important areas. This is a prominent place. People will look at that wing. So take your time, take a nice and sharp brush and highlight that area. This is very important. People will look at it. Same with the face. Look at that nice face. Focus on the important things. Don't take too much time on the feet or something. Nobody looks at feet of miniatures. And as you can see here, for the face, I chose more of a reverse technique. So I basically just washed it multiple times. I made some highlights. I worked with reddish tone in the deep, the eyes getting the attention of the warm areas. So reddish tones for the shadows and then very bright tones for the face. You should have like a pale look, but still very rich in the shadows. I paint the teeth, I paint the cheekbones very prominent, also the chin area and the nose. So everything that is like very up there should be super bright. And the model, as you can see, is really finding some interesting looks already. And now what I do, I kind of like use my sharp brush to replicate the hair structure again. Before it was just blended in with some glazes. Now I really want to show that I can also do some brush strokes. We also can blend that in after that with some glazes as much as you want. Sometimes I kind of like it when there is like a rough texture on hair because I think that gives it a little bit more character. But here I use one glaze after the brush strokes, and I think that is something you can really replicate. And of course, I will show you the final results of that model. But first of all, let's have a small chat. If you like those kind of speed painting challenges or those kind of videos, comment below and tell me what I should paint next. And if you like my channel, if that channel helps you, just hit the subscribe button. I would be very happy and that would support my future work. And we are done. Fulgrim is done and everything just under 3 hours. I really hope that video could help you. And here is the final result.